Hey guys, it's Carl here. In this week's video, I want to share my 2 cents on how to think in English. I know this is a very commonly discussed topic, and I want to share my thoughts and understanding based on my personal experience. This video is going to cover the hows and why. And in terms of a how, I'm also going to share some of the specific approach and the tools that I use. So make sure you watch to the end. In terms of the why, I think the first reason here is something everyone has talked about, is that if you're able to think in English, you're able to really get rid of this mental translation process. Since when a lot of people are speaking, they first think in Chinese and then they do this mental translation in English. So if you're able to get rid of this process, you're able to sound more natural and fluent. And then the second reason here is that if you're thinking about English from a language perspective, there is not always this perfect one-on-one correlation exists in terms of vocabulary. Back then, when I was learning English, whenever I see an English word, I try to find a perfect, translation in Chinese. But then over time, as I got more into English, I realized, okay, there's something that absolutely cannot be translated into Chinese without a certain level of distortion. And then I think some of the best examples here comes in adjectives, because a lot of adjectives in English, they both have either negative or positive connotations. And these cannot sometimes be expressed with a simple, translation on the spot. And then when you think about connotation itself, it's not always binary. Like, it's not always black and white. It's not either positive or negative. There's actually a lot of nuance to it. So no matter how good a translation is, no matter how good the mental translation you do, there's always some sort of distortion happening. And then let's talk about how. So the first thing I want to talk about here is not something everyone mentioned, is that you really need to figure out what your use cases are so you can really define what success looks like. And this isn't something anyone else can answer for you, because yourself have the best idea and sense of what works for you. And let me just give you one example. Let's just say you are someone that lives in an English-speaking country. You work in a 100% English-speaking environment. If that's the case, when it comes to your work, there's absolutely no way you need to speak those things, you need to use those things in Chinese or think in Chinese. But then whenever you see a new word or you're learning something new, your go-to is still to search those things up in Chinese dictionary or the Chinese internet. You're kind of getting in your own way. And honestly, this was a pitfall I have a lot back then. There was a lot of stuff that I first saw in English, I learned them in English, I use them in English, but then for some reason, I still have this extreme obsession to look this up in Chinese. It's like, I need to find this out in English. What does this mean in English? But then later I realized, okay, why would I need to do that? Like, I don't even need to do that. And the second thing about the how is just to get really familiar with the topic. And this is really the work that no one can get around, because let's just say if you never worked in financial service, if I'm throwing you onto a work meeting at the finance company, say an asset management company or investment bank, obviously you're not going to think in their terms because you don't know the terminologies, you don't know the context, you don't know the knowledge, all of these prerequisites. Really, I think in the real world, the best way to learn about the topic is to talk to people and then watch videos, because there's tons of videos out there you can get online for free. And these are the most, I think, time-saving and effective way to learn about a new topic. And having the enough amount of input is really important. And lastly, I want to share the 2 tools that I use pretty much every single day. So the first one is called Collins Dictionary. You've probably heard of it. I think this is something you can find on Youdao, which is kind of similar to Longman Dictionary. They're like very traditional and formal English dictionaries you can use on a daily basis, which I recommend to everyone. And the second one is called Urban Dictionary. And this dictionary is more like user contribution based, which means a lot of the stuff that's on here are not coming from credible sources. That's why it's always been evolving with the internet. And in my opinion, that's what's making it interesting and helpful and practical. Because a lot of the new words from the internet were something, the young people are using, for example, like cap, no cap, risk. These are not something you can find in traditional dictionaries. Also, there's some old words that's always been evolving. For example, there's some words, if you look them up in like Longman or Collins, you can only find its traditional meaning. But in today's age, people might use it differently in different contexts where they could have different connotations. And that is something you can find on Urban Dictionary. But then one downside also comes with that is that just because there's no censorship, things can get a little inappropriate sometimes, and things could get biased. There could be, some racism on there. So you're gonna use your personal discretion and judgment when you're using, and always combine with different, things you can find from different sources. Be more comprehensive about it when you are using these dictionaries. But I still highly recommend, so give it a try. So this is everything I want to share in this video. I hope the content is informational and gives you some new perspectives. If you find this helpful, please leave a like, comment, and consider following me for future content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Ever since you came around